Alice Ryderfeld. Welcome this evening. I'm an elder law, estate planning attorney, and elder mediation. And I've known Paul for quite a number of years. He's been practicing in financial planning for more than 30 years. He's been with Edward Jones for 12, very active in the local community, especially Carl Springs, member of many of the chambers. If you don't know him, you're probably not real active in the community. I invited him here today because what could be more interesting to know, but at the end of the year, but what we can expect in 2021, and of course 2021 coming after 2020 is probably a little bit more interesting and a little bit more confusing. So with that, Paul, welcome.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Alice. I appreciate the opportunity to join you today, and I'm looking very much forward to meeting the participants. And hopefully we can have some good dialogue today and answer some of the questions that may be pressing for you. So again, it's very nice to speak with you guys today.
So before I even ask you about the election, so they still haven't reached an agreement with it, probably shut down for a day. So what does that do to our,
I mean, that's a really good question. But if you take a look at historically, there is not much of a difference in the stock market related to what party wins. There's a slight difference between Republicans and Democrats, and it's on average of a 1% difference over a period of time after the election. So a lot of people think that the markets are better with Republicans. It's really not the case. There's a slight difference between Republicans and Democrats, and the reason for that is a couple of reasons. So the first thing, whoever's in power, whether it's takes office, Trump or Biden, we still got to get up every morning and we got to take a shower and we got to get dressed and we got to go to work, and our lives are going to go on, for the most part, the way it's been, and we're not going to have any significant changes in our lifestyles. Now, having said that, we are dealing with unprecedented times because of the virus, which is a completely set of rules, but we're all going to be doing pretty much basically the same thing. So, whether it's Biden.
You don't think this election was unique?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges that were associated with this election. So, there's a lot of politics, a lot of stuff happened, behind the scenes. I don't think I don't think we saw the end of it. I think this is going to be carrying over for quite some time.
But it doesn't seem to be affecting the market. The market's just going up.
It does not. So that's a really good question, and that's one of the things, that I did want to talk about today was what was affecting the market. And, it's not the politics involved in it. It's not the election. The people are like, even though it's not over, the people are over it already, because we've been dealing with this, for like months and months, it feels like. And
so when the president says the market is good, any president says the market is good under his or her administration, you're basically saying they don't really have it doesn't have anything to do with it.
I mean, it does have something, but it's not the major thing that's driving the market. So, okay. I mean, that's a really good question. But what's driving the market now is just a couple of key things. The first thing that's driving the market is the tug of war between the pandemic and the increased cases and the new vaccines that are getting approved and coming out. So anytime that there's news about a vaccine, whether it be Pfizer or Moderna or AstraZeneca, the market is reacting very, very favorably. But if the news comes out that there's increased cases, hospitals being overrun, and increased deaths, that has the negative effect on the market. But so that's really a key driver of what's happening.
So is it what you're saying is since both are happening simultaneously, it's allowing the market to go up? If there's no vaccine.
What I'm saying is that, it is a tug of war. The tug of war is, between the positive news on the vaccine and also the negative news pulling back on, the increased number of cases. So, it almost looks as if, if it was just based on COVID, that the vaccine is having more effect on the market because the market is positive. That's just one aspect of the market, though. The other aspect and what's driving the market is the stimulus package. So what's happening is an abomination, in my personal opinion. That the politics are putting people's lives at risk by not coming up with that second stimulus package. So and I just think that no matter how you look at it, I think that's wrong.
Well, that's what I was talking about. They still haven't done it today. They were going to shut us down for a day. What does that mean?
Yeah, there's people that are hurting. I mean, there's no question about it. People are hurting. They're out in there. They're not working. The unemployment benefits were running out. So there's a lot of people that are really hurting in the economy. And I think they should set all politics aside and get some type of stimulus out there.
Does that affect not the market, but how does that affect all of us when so many are out of work?
So that's a good question. Again, what a lot of things are happening with consumer confidence. Consumer confidence is down as a result of what's happening, with these people that are out of work. The bulk of the people that are out of work are centered in a couple of industries. So, obviously health, obviously the hospitality industry, being restaurants, Disney Worlds, entertainment, movie theaters, airlines. Yeah. To anyone
hotels.
Exactly. Well, although like all the hotels are shut down.
Huge industry, cruise ships, huge industry.
Yeah. So, when you take a look at that, that is a negative effect. And, that does have some pullback on the market, for people, certainly for people that are affected that they're not investing at this time, they're trying to stay alive and, keep in their houses, so they're not investing, so really that segment doesn't have much to do with the market, but the negative feelings associated with the politics involved, that does have some negative effect on the market.
Well, does it affect the economy? In other words, of people spending less, people borrowing less, in terms of the businesses, they're not making money, they're not saving, they're not spending. Doesn't that affect the economy?
Yeah, that is a really good question too. It definitely does affect the economy. So it's a large portion of the economy, but the bulk of the market is not affected. So if you take a look at the other businesses, like utilities and businesses that are not affected by recessionary measures or, things that are happening, in the economy, some of the corporations are making more money than they ever did, and when they come out with their financial results are all positive, so these are people that are not in, the entertainment business or the cruise lines or the airlines or, hotels and hospitals. So, there's a lot of moving parts to the market and there's a lot of things that are affecting the market, but underlying in the economy, we still have a strong economy, despite, all the stuff that's going on and the unprecedented, problems associated with the virus.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Not that we want it to go wrong, but what could go wrong that would change the trajectory of where we're going in 2021? Because what it seems to me you're saying is as long as we stay on this path with the vaccines and that things will stay stable or even go up a little bit.
So that is a really good question too. So, what happened in the second half of 2020 is that the economy started to open up. GDP started to improve as a result of portions of the economy reopen and business was going on. You don't see it, in Broward County. You don't see it here, but across the United States, businesses were reopening. People were getting out, they were doing things. Which is again part of that tug of war. The people were going out. I think a lot of people were getting a little lax on their behavior. People were getting tired of, wearing masks and doing the CDS, the CDC shuffle, so to speak. People were getting coronavirus weary. And unfortunately, some of these people left their guard down, which created the problem of the increased, COVID, virus. But we do think that, unless there's a complete shutdown, that we will continue to see or continue to see positive GDP. We don't think it's going to be up like historically where it was. In the past, we would look at GDP about 3 or 3.5%. We think it more like, GDP is going to be in the 1.75 to 2% return for 2001, which is pretty decent considering the unprecedented times.
I love it could be 2001, but you mean 2021?
2021, I apologize, yeah. Yeah, I'm dating myself. Yeah, and so we do anticipate we're going to see some positive GDP in 2021. So, we're seeing a lot of different trends that are happening as well. So trends in technology and consumer spending habits are changing. The world is going to be different. 2021 is not going to look like 2020, because we are changing our habits as an economy.
Well, I was going to talk about that a little bit too, but in terms of business, but my understanding is that we will never ever be without Zoom or whatever that replaces Zoom next.
It doesn't look like that way. And if you take a look at historically speaking, anytime that there's a change in corporate structure where they take measures to either reduce employees or during periods of time of recessionary, or if they take other measures to try to improve efficiencies, generally these changes last longer. So would you do anticipate that remote work conditions are going to continue? There's AT&T has over 2,000 employees that are working at home, and they're not anticipating and bringing them back. I will tell you, personally, my wife works for a telecommunication company up in Boca. It's a very big company. They also have several thousand employees, and everyone is working from home. They shut the branches down. So I think in a changing world, we are looking at, some changes that are going to be going on for a long period of time.
Well, I know
working at home in Zoom meetings.
We moved our office to much smaller quarters because we can work at home. So
that's a good point. It's interesting. Prior to coronavirus, I was doing a lot of activity. I was doing networking events. I was out of the office. I was doing breakfast. I belonged to several boards, as well as boards of directors of several changes. And I was doing all these activities outside of the office, and they were feel-good activities. I was out. Who doesn't like to have lunch, and go out, and mingle and, schmooze and, shake hands and, but since coronavirus, I have been quarantined, self-imposed quarantine in my office. I get into the office every day at 7:30. I lock the door. My assistant comes in at 8:30. She locks the door. We're not seeing clients very regularly on a face-to-face. When we do that, everyone's wearing masks and coming in, proper protocol, CDC guidelines. Right. And I will tell you that my business has never been better, just because I'm not doing those feel-good activities. Right. I'm not out of the office. I'm in the office, working with my clients, and it's made a tremendous difference. So I'm really digging deeper.
People are very interested in their finances now too.
Oh, without a doubt, people are
because they're scared, or they're when this thing happened in March, I was so upended for a week that I barely left the couch in my family room. It was like someone smacked me with what happened? Yeah. So even though we've done it for 10 months or whatever, still there's a real uneasy feeling.
There is, there's a lot of uncertainty. One of the things that we didn't discuss, and another factor in what's happening in the market is also, related to fiscal and monetary policy as well. And, in particularly, like interest rates, interest rates.
I was going to ask you about interest rates.
Yeah, interest rates are historically low, and we do not anticipate there's going to be any major increases in interest rates. This is one of the biggest challenges that my clients are experiencing. So, a lot, as Alice, a lot of my practice, I'm dealing with senior clients, that have, income needs. And, a lot of my clients are like on fixed income, they're at the stage of their career where they don't want to take a lot of risk and, have their money in stock. And the biggest challenge that I do have is trying to find income for my clients, and fixed income for my clients, which is challenging. There is no such thing as a CD rate that you can quote nowadays. And, it's
you have to live a couple hundred years to make any money on a CD.
It's true, but I think this, honestly, personally, I think this has an effect on the market as well. So what's happening, because we have these historically low, actually, I'm going to call them hysterically low, but, the historically low interest rates are actually forcing clients to get into the market to look for those, those interest payments and dividends. So, instead of going to a CD, some clients are now looking to buy, dividend paying stocks where they're really willing to take the risk a little bit, getting into the stock market in order to get that dividend payments, because they're not getting it in the CDs. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's an effect on the market as well. There's people that were not in the market are getting into the market as a result.
Another change, and change is always difficult for people in the market. And I just wanted to talk a little bit for a few minutes about business, because we had to do some restructuring in my business, and I know that I'm not alone, even though people don't want to admit it. We're not alone. We had a very busy beginning, because everybody figured they better do their wills and trusts because they're all going to die. So that was what happened at the beginning. And then there was a lull, and now it's back again. But the lull, I mean, I've done some research, so I'm not talking like I'm a therapist. But the lull is that people are putting everything off now. They're in this state of, I don't know what you call it, this just state of every day being the Groundhog's Day almost, where every day is the same, and they'll take care of it when things get back to normal. Yeah. So, so when it slows down a little bit, that's one of the reasons people are not taking the same actions they would have taken under, if there's such thing, again, normal circumstances. So people who are in business really need to look at what they need to do to restructure their business for what's coming forward. A year ago, if you said to me I was going to do a mediation by Zoom, yeah, I would have laughed at in your head. You can't mediate by Zoom. You have to have the people there. And well, you know what? We have no choice but to mediate by Zoom. And you know what? We're figuring it out. You put people in the wrong rooms and whatever. So the way we used to do business, and you have to be open to doing that new ways, banking new ways, and to do some research on your business and to see what the trends are.
That's a really good point. Yeah. So what steps as a small business owner, which you are, and as I, what steps are you taking, as a result of these unprecedented times to cut our business?
Cut our expenses, cut our overhead. Yeah. And we're back to doing now we're doing digital marketing. We are doing a webinar. Yeah. Because I can't go to the meetings anymore. I can't do a lot of the things I used to do. I can't even meet people for lunch, which is really the one thing that I used to like to do, because, you have a one-on-one. Can't really do much of anything. You can do things in the office. You can make phone calls from the office. There's, I have some, information on the good way to do that and all of that. And we've been doing some of that, but we're reaching out, doing more blogging, and we're reaching out more because people need to see you more. They're stagnant, and they need to see you in front of them more. At least that's how I'm doing my business.
No, I mean, I agree with you. So what we've been doing is working at a lot of, social networking. I'm doing a lot of Zoom.
You got to invest in the technology. You can't say I don't want to learn Zoom. No, you got to learn it, and you got to do it, because that's what people are expecting. And that's what I can only meet with my clients. I would like to see their faces. We do a lot of telephone appointments, but sometimes, it's nice to see people's faces. It's easier to build up a relationship that way.
Speaking of technology, have you seen any increased technology in your field? Have they made any improvements to processing, or digital depositions, or we have signing documents?
We have electronic signing now.
Yeah.
So that's a biggie. But it's not completely, like everything else, it's not completely working, because the durable powers of attorney, that you can't do something with them. So you sort of have to have people sign those in person anyway. Yeah. But there is digital signing. We haven't had to do that. We've just either done what we call drive-by signings, where we flag everything, or now that we're in this office, we can be completely 6 feet apart with masks, and we flag everything, and we can give it to them to sign. So we can do it pretty safely, but we used to call them drive-by signings.
I'm doing the same thing. So I do a lot of
it was so bizarre. It was so bizarre. But there is digital signing, and although we haven't really done it yet, there is. And if I start, the other thing I can do with my business now that everything is digital, is I don't have to stick with Broward County anymore.
Yeah.
I can go to Tallahassee and look for business, because I'm never meeting my clients in an office anymore.
That's excellent. Yeah,
so you have to think outside the box. Who would have thought about, I'm not going to do Tallahassee, but Palm Beach, Jupiter, who would have thought to do that when you were meeting everybody in your office? Now it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit of business 101.
Excellent.
Okay, so talk about tax, anything with tax preparations that people need to know?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that, with Biden's, potentially coming into office, I think, I don't think there's any
I
doubt.
think that's a pretty sure bet, but who
Yeah,
knows?
I mean, it's, I don't, I don't clap until the fat lady sings, right? But, it's a pretty sure bet that he's coming in. Biden is going to be making some adjustments to the taxes, it's part of his administration, so some of the tax changes that he's making are going to affect people. The key word.
State and gift tax are going to probably
exactly. That is a concern. Not only is state and gift tax, but capital gains tax. There's a lot of things that Biden is proposing to bolster, like spending, and to bring monies in, from taxes. So I think there's some sore taste in his mouth, regarding Trump's tax, changes, and I think he's going to modify or obliterate a lot of those. So we are going to experience a lot of changes, in
I
our
read
taxes,
yesterday. I read yesterday that there's been a bipartisan group that examined all the tax cuts to see if it trickles down, and they've looked for the last, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
So, which is why the wealth in our country is so unequally dispersed, because it's not trickling down.
Yeah, I think having a standard deduction of $12,000, I think that was brilliant. I mean, that helped a lot of people and put money into people's pockets,
Right.
for 24,000. But a couple of the key considerations and some changes in tax that people may or may not be aware of. I just wanted to go through a couple with you. First thing was related to RMDs. There has been changes on RMDs. It used to be 70.5. They pushed it back to 72. But for this year,
that's the IRA required minimum distributions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. For those that don't know.
We like to check our acronyms at the door. That's my. So your requirement minimum distributions, you don't have to take, and you can still contribute to an IRA.
Well, this is the interesting thing. Yeah. So this is a big change that people may not be aware of. So yeah. So the RMD is required minimum distribution. When you're putting money into an IRA or a 401k, it's actually a tax deferred investment. It's not a tax-free. A Roth is a tax-free investment, a Roth IRA, but a IRA or 401k is a tax deferred. So the IRS is allowing you to put money in there, and take advantage of the tax. But when you pull it out, that's when the tax is due. So the required minimum distribution is making you take money out so they can get paid on the tax. That's what the RMD was about.
About a year and a half ago, I did a 3-part blog series on the stretch IRA, only for it to be not totally meaningless.
Totally obliterated, which is a lot of problems.
I don't like that at all, because that was a way you could really control because many people of the now senior, which I've been sort of considering myself now, have huge retirement accounts. And it's hard to plan with retirement, harder to plan with retirement accounts. So if you made the trust the beneficiary of a retirement account, you could have it stretched out for a long period of time. So the kids couldn't cash it in and kick 45% or something.
Well, actually, it was like almost indefinitely. So
now it's just 10 years, which is not terrible, but because most people that's not going to make. But 10 years is not good in my opinion.
No, actually, it's not. So that's a big change. So, and for the benefit of the audience, the stretch IRA allowed you to put an IRA and an inherited IRA into an IRA, and you could keep it in there. And the only thing you had to do was to take the required minimum distribution. So you could keep that thing in a tax deferred account for many, 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 many years. You could also identify beneficiaries. You could actually skip generations by making a grant.
I wrote this whole thing. I must have spent 6 weeks researching it, and it's like waste.
So and it all went away. So now inherited IRAs, you got to take out the money within 10 years. So actually, what I'm doing a lot for my clients that are receiving inherited IRAs right now which is a good strategy to know, is instead of keeping in an inherited IRA, and having to take the money out over 10 years, you can convert it into a Roth. It's a taxable event, but you convert it into a Roth Once you have money into a Roth, there is no required minimum distributions on it at all. You can keep it, and you can keep it in a tax-free, Roth, like indefinitely, and leave it to beneficiaries. So that's a good strategy.
I forgot to ask you, talk a little bit for a few minutes about the new hybrid long-term care insurance policies. I didn't put it on our talking points, but it's real important.
It
I don't
is.
know how I missed
I
it.
think it's critical. So your audience doesn't know me really too well, but I'm going to tell you the truth, honestly, is that I am very cheap, and particularly with my clients' money. So if I'm spending money and making a recommendation for one of my clients, I'm going to look for the best possible deal for them, without a doubt. And I work as a fiduciary, so the most important thing is that I'm going to do the right thing for my clients, for the least amount of money. My interest is not coming first. It's always my client's interest. That's how I work as a fiduciary. So when it comes to long-term care, there's basically 3 different types of long-term care policy that you can have. One of them is similar to a Geico policy. You buy into this policy, it's an insurance, you pay into it every year, like a Geico policy. If you get into an accident, or you need to have a long-term care situation, you have the benefit of some dollars in that policy that's going to cover the accident. I'm just being facetious and using the Geico analogy. But that policy does not gather any cash value to it. There's no death benefit associated with that policy, so you can be paying.
Because I don't want to go too far over our time.
Yeah. Okay. So
talk about the hybrids, because I love them.
Okay. So the other policy is you buy a policy. So you put a 50,000 lump sum into a policy, and it gives you a multiple of benefit in the past. That's a different type of policy. The third policy is, in my opinion, which is the hybrid policy, is the best opportunity. So what a hybrid policy is, it's an insurance policy that has a death benefit, and the death benefit is a living death benefit. So what that means is I'm going to take out an insurance policy on myself. I'm going to write a policy for the $250,000. I'm going to have my wife as the beneficiary, or my kids, or my girlfriend. I'm kidding. Whoever is going to be the beneficiary. But if I get sick within my lifetime, I can use the $250,000 death benefit to pay for my long-term care.
Now you have to put a lump sum of money down here, but you're not going to.
No, you don't.
Okay.
On the hybrid policy, it's like an insurance policy. So I'm buying a policy. I'm going to pay a premium. It's going to be an annual.
Okay,
premium.
paying a premium, but or you can put a lump sum down. They have it, and then you can. It's an insurance or an annuity, and the same thing. It gathers and you death benefit.
That is available. That's a different type. That is absolutely a different type of policy.
The point I want to make is that the days where you had to buy a Geico policy, where you lost it. I mean, we do it every year with our homeowners. We do it every year with our car, and we don't complain. But with long-term care insurance, people just did not want to buy policies that were going to lose everything. They're expensive.
The biggest challenge.
Be aware that there are these products that are available where you're not going to lose all of your money, and where it's really, they make sense. It's almost like self-insurance.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I think, but for my clients, the biggest recommendation I make to my clients when we're dealing with long-term care issues or putting a policy in place is going to be a hybrid policy where they pay a premium, because I'm cheap. God forbid they pass away, and, someone's getting a $250,000 tax-free benefit. So we say, you're paying something for,
Right.
You don't lose it. And if you only use $100,000 out of that policy, for your long-term care needs, someone's getting 150. So I mean, it makes a lot of sense for me. The biggest problem with the traditional long-term care policies is the premiums can go up. That's the biggest problem. And if you have a policy, you can be paying 10, 15 years, and then all of a sudden they send you a note. John Hancock says, your policy is going to increase and we're going to give you a $5,000 annual increase on your premium. And you have 2 options. You can either reduce the coverage, or you can reduce the, the time that you get paid out on it, or you can pay the difference, or more. So, I think that's the biggest challenge. But when you do one of those hybrid policy, you're paying that premium, and it's a fixed premium. There's no increase on that premium. So it makes a lot of sense.
I wanted everybody to be aware of that. I just wanted to also say that, since we're in a time warp, the same time warp that we were talking about before, doesn't mean that you can let your guard down. You have to have your power of attorney. You have to have your estate planning documents
Without a
done.
doubt.
People, and you can't do them yourself. I mean, Paul, we didn't even talk about this, but any experience in people doing their own stuff? Do you have any horror stories?
It happens all the time, and so people, people are focused on living. We're not thinking about, so in some cases, we're not thinking too much on our finances. We're not thinking of our beneficiary designation or, our estate planning. We're working and we're living and making money and, raising a family. And I can't tell you how many times I have clients that come into the office with a beneficiary review and they have their ex-wife as the beneficiary in their policy. They didn't even know about it. So, I think beneficiary review is like critical and it's important. The other consideration. Sorry?
Beneficiary review is one of mine. And the latest one is, please, everybody, have a list of your passwords. You have no idea what aggravation it is for families if they can't get into stuff. Yeah. It's torture.
It is. It's very, very, very difficult.
And let's see. And power of attorney. Those are my three. You have to make sure your beneficiary designations are consistent with everything. You have to have your powers of attorney, and you have to leave the password list. Somebody asked me to have you go back to RMDs that I interrupted you. So could you just go back and ask, explain what you were talking about?
Yeah. Did someone have a question about RMD? So
I think I might have interrupted you and someone didn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay. So, basically an RMD is a required minimum distribution. So what happens is the IRS imposes, a rule on you that you have to take out a distribution on an annual basis out of your IRA when you reach a certain age. So it used to be 71 and a half. If you were 71 and a half and you had an IRA, the IRS comes up with the calculation. It's based on your estimated longevity or how long you're going to be on the planet. And they say you have to take a certain percentage out. The penalty for not doing it was 10%. So if you had to take a $2,000 premium, $2,000 R&D and you didn't do it, you'd have to take $2,000 plus another $200 penalty on it. So, it was kind of a stiff penalty if you didn't do it. So when they made the modification to R&D, they did two things. So the first thing is they pushed it back. You don't have to take it until 72, which was a big difference for people. And then the other thing for this year, and we don't know if it's going to be extended for next, but for this year, they actually put a moratorium on R&D. So even if you're 72 in 2020, you do not have to take an R&D. That's because of the coronavirus.
That's a big
pandemic. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, that's
so huge. Some people, decided, instead of, taking my R&D, or I may take it and I'm going to put it into an insurance policy, or I'm going to invest it like an annuity or something along those lines. But so that's a big difference.
Last thing I want to ask you, and then we'll answer any more questions.
Yeah, certainly.
You've always talked about uncertainty in the market and uncertainty in the world. So just let's, close with your little philosophy on that and how it's going to affect us going forward.
Okay, so that's a really good question. So, when it comes to investing, a lot of people ask me, Paul, when is the best time to invest? And my answer is always the same. It's when you have money. That's the best time to invest, is when you have money. If you take a look at the trajectory of the market going back from the start of the market to today, the market is going one way. It's going up. So I had a conversation. Actually, I had a client in my office today, and she was saying, well, what's happening with the market? And, isn't the market going to go away someday? The market is never going to go away until, until they stop making babies. That's the only way the market is going to stop, because here's the philosophy. People are born, they grow, they start making a living, they start making money, they get invested in the market. So as long as there's new people coming into the planet, the market is going to continue that trajectory because people are coming into the market. So best time to invest is when you have money, but you also need to be watching what you do. There's going to be opportunities, and there's also going to be challenging periods of time. And you have to be in the right investments, with some good guidance, during those difficult times to wear the storms during those difficult times. One of the things is if you have a retirement account and you're planning on a long-term investment strategy, and this may sound crazy, but I'm going to tell you anyhow, is that if the market is down and you are investing in an IRA, That's one of the best things that can happen to you. If it's an IRA and you have no plans to take that money out for 10, 15, 20 years, if the market's down, you're reinvesting dividends and you're buying those investments at a lot cheaper amount. So, what I do for my clients, if the market, takes a major tumble, I'm on the phone with my clients. Hey, if you have any money, today is the best day to invest. Put some money into the market, because eventually this is going to turn around. And what you do today is going to make a difference of where you are 6 years from now. So you got to be prudent, but you also got to look for opportunity and take advantage. The last thing I'll say about, of being invested in the market, one of the most critical things that you do need to do is you need to know what you're invested in. First of all, if you don't know why you have it or what it does, you shouldn't be in it. You need to know what you have. And then the most important thing is you need to rebalance your portfolio. You've heard of that 1,000 times. And everyone says a well-diversified and balanced portfolio. There is a reason for it. If something performs better than others, it's a good opportunity to take some money.
Explain that doesn't mean 4 different mutual funds.
No,
that's not diversifying.
No, it's not diversifying. Yeah, so
explain what that means.
Yeah, so when you want to have a diversified portfolio, you have asset categories. So the basic asset categories are cash, fixed income, growth in income, growth and aggressive investment, as well as international. So when you have a diversified portfolio, you want to have holdings in all of those areas. Now, whether you hold it in mutual funds, individual stocks, exchange traded funds, individual bonds, or collateralized mortgage obligation, it really doesn't matter what you hold it in, but you need to have that diversification of having all those asset classes in your portfolio. And if one of them takes over, for example, if I'm meeting with a client, I said, we're going to start out, Mr. and Mrs. Client, and we're going to have a 30% exposure in international in your portfolio. Now, if international performs extraordinarily well and it takes over 40 or 50% of the portfolio, my recommendation is immediately, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we need to rebalance your portfolio. I need to sell off some of that international exposure and rebalance it into fixed income or growth in income or domestic equity. So what happens is most of my clients are going to take my advice, but we always have a couple, Alice, you know what I'm talking about. They're not going to take our advice for whatever reason. And
you didn't answer my question about you do recommend people use lawyers to do this stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Actually, the most important thing that you can do is to, check with an attorney, without a doubt. If you do not have a will, get one today. You need to have a will. You need to have a trust. If it's, if Alice tells you, it's a good opportunity, or, you should have one. The other thing is without a doubt, the power of attorney. And I think one of the most important things is the healthcare surrogate, that you need to have that in place. God forbid, slip bang, you're in the hospital, who's going to be authorized to take care of you? That's something that you really need to think about and be, very critical about that.
Somebody has a question, and I'm not sure I got it right, but please ask you to answer where the government monies are coming from.
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah.
I always wondered that myself.
Yeah. So the government can print money, so they are doing is they're going into debt. So what they're doing is they're spending future tax money right now to do the stimulus package. The government is able to print, and distribute money. There is actually no cap on it, but we are in serious debt. There's trillions of dollars in debt that we need to take care of, after we do these stimulus payments and, and take care of the economy.
Will that create inflation? I'm sorry to interrupt. Will that create inflation, having such a debt and printing money?
I think that most of it is going to be created in the form of taxes. So, when you start taking a look at the Biden tax modifications, you hear the magic number of 400. He said that the only people that are going to be affected are people earning over 400. But there's a lot of moving parts on the Biden plan, that are going to increase taxes. Tremendous amount of taxes that are, particularly the estate tax. It's dropping dramatically, to $3 million from its current. What is it now? It's like
12, I think, 12 and change.
Yeah. So, I mean, anyone that's, been very well off is, passes away with an inheritance or an estate in excess of, $3 million. That's going to be a huge tax bill. So, you know,
Huge.
in answer to the question, where's the money coming from? It's future money from tax rolls, and that's how they intend to pay the deficits. Hopefully that makes sense.
Can that create a stock market crash? This government.
I mean, that's a really good question. So,
Not my question, somebody else's really good question.
Yeah, well, I'm telling that other person is a good question. So, you know what? When people talk about the crash, you know, the most recent one was back in 2007 and 8. You know, so that was a crash that was associated with avarice and greed and people lending money that had no business borrowing the money, and the people that were borrowing the money had no good reason to lend it to them. You know, so you know it was all based on greed and avarice, and you know it created a bubble. You know, so when they started unwinding these collateral mortgage obligations and found out that they had a lot of crap in it, for a better choice of words, they were all junk. That's what created the financial crisis. We are going to see periods of time. It happens in the market on an annual basis. You're going to see a 10% correction, you know, like one time a year. You'll see 5% corrections that happen every other year, or a couple of times within the year. And then occasionally you'll see something called the bear market, which is a 20% correction. But as far as market disappearing or going completely to zero, I don't think we'll ever see that in our lifetime. We're not going to see anything near the financial crisis that we had in 2008, because you know, there have been a lot of measures put in place to avoid those types of situations. If anyone's trying to get a mortgage, there's no such thing as a subprime mortgage anymore, and the documentation that you need is like, you know, it's massive, you know, to do that. So the
reason nobody's talking about a crash is because there's no crash coming.
I don't believe there is. You will see fluctuations in the market. It's going to be a very, very volatile market next year. You know, but I don't think it's caused by political concerns. I think it's more concerned about the COVID virus, the economy opening up, GDP, and interest rates. And I think those are the key drivers of what's going to be happening in the market. You know, so my best advice to, you know, our group today is like, you know, buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. You know, but there is, you know, positive trends that are happening in the market. We do anticipate GDP is going to improve next year.
I'm trying to unmute Brenda.
Yes, I'm the one.
There you are. I got you. Because she's apparently we're not answering her question. So Brenda.
No. I mean, I'm the one that raised that question because I'm 80 years old. I was a public employee. No, really. And I, you know, put into a 403B. It's up to $700,000. From the $38,000 I started at age 28.
Awesome.
And I get fixed 7%, or I could put it in the market. I've left it in fixed, and I've had to withdraw and pay very hefty taxes because the middle class is screwed, excuse me, when it comes to you understand what I'm saying.
Well,
so here I am, you know, I mean, I'm fortunate that I've, you know, have good income from pension and Social Security. And I don't even need that money, but so I'm not going to take it out this year. But I'm just, you know, concerned. You know, I'm concerned about when I'm the one that asks, where's all this money coming from? Because I question. I mean, I'm not an economic genius, but it seems to me. I mean, first of all, the cost of real estate is outrageous. Yes. Outrageous. I'm currently in Honolulu. I got stuck here. I'm from New York City, but I never went home.
I was going to guess that, Brenda.
What? Oh, my accent?
Yeah, hear your accent.
Yeah. We all hear it.
Yeah, I get ribbed a lot here about it. But
sure
I'm really, but you know, at some point I have long-term care insurance. I've never heard of this hybrid plan until today, but I've had it since I'm 60. So, you know, so I feel pretty well covered. But I'm concerned about, you know, the economy and this, you know, spending all this money. And no one, like Paul Krugman says, it isn't a problem. No one seems to think it's a problem. Am I crazy?
No, you're absolutely right. It is a challenge. And I'll just relate to something that happened many years ago. So, you know, during the World War II, Great Britain went out on a tremendous amount of debt in order to fund the war effort. You know,
they were bankrupt. They were
Yeah,
bankrupt.
a lot of people don't know about this, or
What about in Germany with the wheelbarrows of money?
Yeah.
We gave
Well, just-
Germany money, but Great Britain was bankrupt, really bankrupt.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that within the last couple of years, they finally paid off their debt from World War II. This just happened, within the last couple of years. So, and the point I'm getting at is, the debt is an issue, but the plan is to pay it off, and we're going to be paying it off with taxes, future taxes. So.
So I don't want to keep everybody longer than we planned, which is just about now. We do a half hour and then 15. Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Yeah, good luck, Brenda. Hope you get home soon.
After the vaccine, I'll leave, not before.
All right, good. Aloha.
Before we forget, Paul, first of all, if you don't get it now, you can contact me and I'll give you Paul's contact information. But why don't you give everybody your phone number and your email?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
I'd be happy to, to answer any questions, outside of this meeting. My office is located in Coral Springs. I'm on the corner of Atlantic and Coral Ridge Drive. So I'm local, not local to Brenda anymore.
I come to Florida to see my brother.
You can reach me at my telephone number is 954-796-6027. And I'm in the.
Oh, sorry. Whoa. Hold on. Are you back? Well, oh. Hello? 1 second, 1 second. Paul?
Okay, yes, I got it.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button.
That's all right. I still like you, Alice. Although you cut my telephone number off. So again, my office is on the corner of Atlantic and Coral Ridge Drive in Coral Springs. I'm in the professional office complex with the court in it and the water fountain. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, and I'm happy to speak with anyone and answer any questions. My number is 954-796-6027. And what I do for clients as well as prospects, I'll do a free portfolio review. And if you have any questions about your portfolio, I'll take a look at it. I'll look under the hood of the car. There's no cost for it. And I'll tell you, what my analysis is, whether you have good investments in it, if they're working or if there's some issues that I see may have been concerned for you. So,
Paul, do you want to give your email address too?
Yeah, certainly. My email address is my name, and you have that on the invitation. It's Paul.Kavanagh. It's K-A-V as in Victor A, N-A-G as in George, H as in Harry, and that's at edwardjones.com.
Okay.
My assistant's name is Melanie, and she's a rock star. She handles all my appointments. So if you did want to schedule something for like a one-on-one Zoom meeting or a one-on-one conversation, just give us a call. We'll get something on the calendar for you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or, take a look at anything that you may have a concern. Again, most important thing is you need to know what you have in your investments. If you have something in there that you don't know what it is, or an annuity that you don't know how it works, or, what's happening with an annuity, let me take a look at it. I'll tell you what it is. One thing I'm going to promise you, and Alice knows me. Alice, you know me for a long time. I'm never going to lie to you. I'm always going to tell you the truth.
I could have invited 100 different brokers within a 5-mile radius of me. I picked you.
Yep. No, well, thank you.
Because I trust Paul.
Yeah. I'm never going to lie to you. I'm always telling you the truth. And you're not going to like what I tell you sometimes, because, it is the truth. And we have those hard conversations. So no one likes to talk about long-term care.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming. If you have any questions for Paul or me, just email or call, and we will let you know when the next seminar is. It's probably not going to be till the first of the year because nobody wants to do anything between now and the first of the year. So have a great day. Happy holidays to everybody.
I want to thank you very much, Alice.
I hope 2021 is a better year for all of us. I can't imagine that it won't be.
I want to thank you very much, Alice, for allowing me to
My pleasure.
Today. And
good night.
Many blessings for a happy and healthy holiday. And hopefully we'll have a better year next year. And Be kind to one another. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Alice.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.